Hello, this is Pink Polo Programming and welcome to the third episode of my C programming course. Today's topic, variables and data types. First of all, a variable is a storage space to save data. And every variable always has three properties. Every variable has a data type, which describes what is saved in it. For example, integers or decimal numbers, characters. Every variable has a value. For example, the numbers of coins you have, your age, the name of a product, and so on. And normally the value of a variable can change. Lastly, every variable has a name. This is very important so that we know where the variable is saved and that we can access it. Examples for names would be coins, name, product name, and so on. Okay, so now we have the most common data types in C, which are integers, floats, doubles, and chars. We use the format letter to print them in our console, but don't worry about that, we will look what this means in a second. And then we have the size. Of course, every variable needs to be saved so that we can exit it later, and it uses a different amount of bytes depending on the data type you chose. Okay, so first of all, we need to create a new file. I've named it variables and datatypes.c. If you forgot how to create a new file, you need to click on File, New, New Empty File, and then you need to save file as, and then you have to choose the folder where you want your file to be saved. Okay, so now we need to start our program like last time. First, we need to include our input and output file where our input and output functions are. We need to write hashtag include stdio.h, and now we have our standard input output functions. So now we need our main function. If you forgot how to do all of that, please check out our last video where we discussed the main function and the including of header files in detail. Now we are going to declare our first variable. Declaring a variable means to create one. So that means if we write int and we give it a name like variable, but you can choose the one you like to. And we make a semicolon. So now we've got a variable called variable in our program. We can use it now for different things, but it hasn't got a value yet. So if we would try to print it now, we'd have just a random number. But we can initialize the variable, which means giving it a value for the first time. For that, we only need to write the name of the variable equals, for example, 5. Now we've got a variable with the value 5. But let's dive into that a bit more deep now. First, we need to write the data type. I have chosen the integer data type, where we only need to write int. Just look it up on our sheet. And after that, you need to write the name. If you remember, every variable needs a name, a value, and a data type. We've got the integer data type, we've got our value, and we've got our name. The name is important so that we know where we want to assign the value. So now we are adding some comments. Comments are very useful to write some notes into your program that you know what this program does if you look at it, for example, a month later, or just to explain something to your teammates in your job or as your hobby. For that, you need to write 2 slashes. And then you can write initializing a variable. Declaring a variable. Okay, so if you try to execute this program now by clicking on build and run, as you can see, our console popped up, but there's nothing inside the console because we didn't print anything. And now we need to print something. Just as last time, we need to write printf for printing something. Then we need to do 2 braces. Then we need to make 2 brackets, 2 quotation marks, and our semicolon. But we cannot write variable inside. If you try to execute this, you will see it will write variable and not the value of our variable. That's why we need format letters. We need to write %d. You can look it up on our sheet, but you need to use %d for integers. After that, you need to write comma and the name of the variable. In this case, variable. If we try to execute our program now, you can see it's the value 5. And if we try to change the value is different. So let me explain again what we did here. In our string, which is called the format string, we can write different text. For example, my variable has the value. So, and if you write %, it indicates that now there is a variable coming and that it needs to replace this with the value of this variable. This may sound a bit complicating, which it actually is in C. In most modern programming languages, it's much more easy. You can just write the name of the variable. But here in C, you need to write the format letter and comma variable. Actually, we don't need to always initialize and declare our variable separately. We can do that in one command. For that, we need to write int variable equals 5. Of course, we can give it any name we want. We can name it, for example, my value. And now we have a new variable. Of course, if we try to run our program now, it will tell us, I don't know, variable. This is because we changed the name of the variable. We need to change it back to variable or replace this with my value. But integer is not the only data type that we have. We also have got floats. For example, if we write float, my float equals 4.3. now we've got our float variable where we can write, um, where we can save decimal numbers. If you try to save a decimal number in an integer, you will see that it still displays 5 because the point 3 just gets cut off. So if we try to display our float now, we need to type %f, then comma, and our variable we want to have displayed. And if you run our program now, you can see our float can display decimal numbers 4.3. And there we have those zeros as well. If we don't want those decimals, we can write 0.1 f. As you can see here, there's only one decimal after the comma. If you write 0.3f, we've got 3. So that is for integers and floats. But we also got the double, which is basically just a bigger float, and you need to replace the f with an lf. We will not go into that right now because it's basically the same, but we will make a character as well. So we've already learned that we need to write a string, a text between 2 quotation marks, but characters are written between those 2. And I'm going to delete those. If we want to display that now, we need to write %c for character, my char, and if you try to run it now, you can see there's a C in the console. Okay, so I hope you now understand what a variable is. I suggest you to try to make some variables your own so that you understand them better and that you are prepared for the next video. That's it for the third episode. I hope you learned something new today and see you in the next video.